Yeah, and we've got a few polls and stuff to keep it interesting. So first up, I like to try and keep things a little bit organised. So we'll start at the beginning, really, trying to think about, who are the candidate personas we might want to be trying to target, EVP, that sort of stuff. And before we start thinking about the content we're going to bring about, so I'm going to show you how some of the tools like ChatGPT can really help you to speed up the production process, or even actually sort of guide you through the process of what is a candidate persona. How do I do this? I'm trying to achieve this goal. Give me a step by step of how I get there. ChatGPT can be your employer brand expert, guiding you through those steps. The biggest challenge you need to have, as I see it as the moment in skills, is knowing what questions to ask ChatGPT. And that comes from trial and error, just asking and asking and asking. Okay, we're going to do a live demo. I've done that already, actually. I've set that running, but I'll show you that of how you can sort of benchmark your career site and get some ideas for your website, that sort of thing. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about image generation. You might want images generated, things like that. So I'll show you some cool tools for that. And we'll look at producing social updates and then future planning, looking at what's coming down the line in relation to this area. Right, but first I want to sort of get a sense check for the room. So I'm going to do a quick poll. Both of these questions you can tick more than one answer. First thing I want to know is how many of you are regularly using tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or Perplexity, or maybe you're not using any of them, in which case that's fine too. So let's just see who's using what. And then the second question, when you get to that, is interested in asking you sort of what sort of employer brand related tasks are you using AI to support you on? As I expected, job advert copy was the winner. Becky's using Gemini. Yeah, Becky, I threw this together a little bit quickly. I always do the surveys very last minute, and I thought I had them all covered, but yeah, blind spot, missed out Gemini. I presume, Becky, I might be wrong, but you're using Gemini because your organization runs off Google, your Google Docs, your Google sort of workspace, I guess. So yeah, there are lots of yeah. So Becky's using Gemini because their organization, a bit like the people that are using Copilot, are probably a Microsoft-based organization. Okay, I'm going to give that 5 more seconds so you guys can do that. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for that. Those people who said something else, please do add it into the chat. So first up, I will share these results. So we'll see ChatGPT is the big winner here. 85% of the people who said yes were using ChatGPT. Bunch of people using Copilot, a few people using Claude, and no one's using Perplexity. Okay, that's interesting. And obviously, Becky's using Gemini. Maybe some others would have ticked that as well if I left it on there. Interesting, Copilot doesn't really seem to be loved as much. It's there, it's available for a lot of people, but it's not really used. The people using Claude, our marketing team use Claude and haven't really benchmarked it against the latest ChatGPT. You'd have seen in the last month, GPT-5 has come out this month. But before that, Claude was better at following instructions. So if you said, here's my job advert, do not change how I describe my organization, Claude is much more likely to follow that as an instruction than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a bit like an AI. If you said to tidy your bedroom, it might tidy your bedroom, but also gather up all the laundry and put it in the washing machine, even though you was planning on wearing that shirt tomorrow. It's a rubbish analogy, but ChatGPT has a sort of aspect to it where it tries to be super helpful, whereas Claude is a little bit more deliberate. It will do what you ask it to do, which is why we like it over in marketing a little bit. And then looking at what tasks you're doing, job advert copy was the winner. People are using it for career site content, which is good. Social media posts, yeah. And yeah, a few people using it, or a couple of people using it for video generation. Interesting, very cool. Right, and Tammy said, I use it to double check and reformat emails, and I also ask questions, CQC regulations. Yeah, so you'll see, look down here at the bottom, I have got ChatGPT on my desktop, and I use it all the time. One of the best tips I could say, I was actually walking the dog this morning thinking about how do we get our entire organization using these tools a lot more. And I think one of the things, we're only a small organization, we've got about 50 staff, but one of the things I'm going to suggest is that we'll build it into people's performance reviews. So make sure they're asking them and have a little framework so we're able to grade people as to where they're at in regards to, what demonstrable AI examples they can show. But I also probably going to talk to our IT person to put ChatGPT on every person's machine and go from there. But obviously there's some other rollout pieces around it, which you can't just throw this stuff out. You've got to think about what tools, you've got to talk to your IT department about how you've got to train people on how to use it. So I don't want to go too far, but getting people to use these tools is really key. It's good that you guys are doing it already. Okay, so let's think about. I find that some of this stuff a little bit technical, a little bit boring, not as sexy as some of the stuff we're going to cover, but it is important. Okay, so why do you need to build candidate personas? Well, the aim of this will be it ensures your content engages the right audience. So if I was gonna, go to ChatGPT now and say, can you write me a job advert for this, or write me a social media post for this? One of the things ChatGPT does, and so does Claude, and I'll imagine Gemini does this pretty well as well, and Copilot, is they retain memory now. That's a really big area for them. Memory is super huge. So if I said, write me a job ad, it'd probably remember who hireful are from my previous prompts where I've said, oh, hireful are this, we do this as a business, etc., etc. So that's useful, but it doesn't really know the people we're targeting. So the more information I can give it, if I can upload a document that says, here is our candidate personas, even better. Yeah. So then the output we get will be much more aligned to the person we're trying to engage. Yeah. Obviously, it helps maybe by having the right candidate personas might help us to define, where we're going to go about and how we're going to target people. By candidate personas, I'm talking about, you might be thinking we're going to hire, working parent or something like that. A working parent is one of the typical candidate personas that we engage here and that we're trying to engage more of. So that could be someone you think, well, where do they hang out online? Where do they, that sort of thing. And how do we make sure our content engages them? So a job advert aimed at a working parent might look at your benefits and might, because you've got quite a lot of benefits. It's hard to list all of them on a job advert, or even the order you list them in can be quite key. So it might list sort of more family-friendly benefits like childcare vouchers, a bit hybrid working, things like that. It might list them higher up or stress them more and make them more prominent in your job advert or career site content. Yeah, and obviously it may make sure the message aligns with their values and ambitions. So this is a common, marketing technique. Yeah, and obviously, as we said, it helps ChatGPT to get to understand you and what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So we don't want to just do that. Here is our website. Create me the content I need for our career site, please. Because the customer persona for hireful is very different to the career site persona of the candidates we're hiring. Not very different, but certainly significantly different. Yeah. So you want to make sure you're feeding it the right information. So let's have a think about that. So what you're sort of aiming for is detailed, 5 to 10 personas that you can sort of prioritize for high impact roles. So roles where you have high volume. So if you're like a big IT company, you've got a big support desk, you can think about the personas of the people you've got in those roles. So yeah, sort of split them out. You don't have to split it by like first line support. It could be like, these are the people that provide customer support. The people that provide customer service could also be grouped with them if it's a similar sort of attributes and values in there. There is a diversity question here that I don't want to get too aligned to. You don't want to just look at your existing customer support team and go, right, they're all young graduates. Let's set up a persona for young graduates. It's not just about who you've hired, but who you want to be hired. Untapped markets and people you might be able to engage can also be quite useful for this as well. Yeah, and what's the overall object? What drives that persona? What's going to drive it? And then the data sources are interesting. How can you find out more about these personas? And one of the things I'll touch on later is, if you're doing Zoom interviews or Teams interviews, maybe gathering the transcript from that and actually using it to sort of build personas. There might be other market trends, and exit interviews potentially as well could be useful. People telling you like, this is why I'm moving on. This is what motivates me. You start to get an idea from that, and obviously performance reviews, as well as also recruitment metrics. Yeah, you'll see who's engaging, who's going further, who's applying, what type of people are applying to your adverts. Okay, but let me give you a bit of an idea of like what the end result is here. I don't have time to do everything on ChatGPT today, so I'm going to sort of show you the sort of end results of this. Well, I will do in just a second. I forgot there's this slide coming up. I've mentioned turn on the transcript during interviews. This is an option for you. If you're going to do this, by the way, and you're going to use something from the recruitment process, like interview transcripts, to help you produce marketing content, you do need to subtly just change your privacy policy to put that in there. Because any piece of personal information you're gathering, according to GDPR, that you have a use for. So if you're going to use diversity data for reporting on diversity, then you need to actually say that in your privacy policy, which it no doubt probably says that. But this is probably a use case you don't have in your privacy policy. So you might want, if you're going to do this, you would probably want to update your privacy policy. Now, in addition to that, you would want to ask permission from the candidate. And I think you can be very careful. If you do it at the start of the interview, that can be very much a sort of bit of pressure. So I'd just send them an email in advance that they can easily yes, no to. So like, if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. But maybe you might be able to make the benefits for them, because you could give them the transcript afterwards and say, look, you'll also have the transcript so you can read through your answers and, you know, understand maybe areas where you've done well and areas where you can improve. But you can structure your questions, because it could be part of the questions in the interview could be slightly tweaked so that you can understand the candidate's motivations better. And then you're getting this really rich information about what's driving these candidates, which can be so important for your employer brand. Yeah, and it's good, you know, as I said, it's good practice. You can make this a win for candidates, you know, getting this transcript, storing this transcript also has benefits for you when you go like, you know, maybe there's a confusion about how to score a candidate, or, you know, let's go back and check the transcript. And was there evidence of them demonstrating this skill? So you can go back and do it. So I think hugely important to keep the transcript if you can. Okay. So they're a great data source. Remember, think of it like this. I mean, if you haven't heard this quote, AI is like an infinite intern. You know, they're really hardworking. I'm like that work experience person who turns up, but they're bright, they're clever, they know nothing about your organization. Now, if you've got lots of processes and information all documented that this work experience or intern can just read through and gather, and they can read really quickly, then they're going to be much more useful and viable. That's why we talk about a data set. I'm going to talk about that a bit later on. These interview transcripts are one example of a data set, but you're thinking all the time, perhaps, where do we have good content that I could sort of capture and we can feed to AI, because it will really be able to help us with this process. Okay. So yeah, if you had that AI intern, would you not want to let it into every room so it can hear everything you're doing and watch everything you're doing? Yeah, that's a bit scary in some cases. If you're interested, ChatGPT spent $6 billion buying a company, and the owner of that company, the founder of that company, was the founder. Where he was the designer for the iPhone, and they are going to build wearable tech. It's the one area that they've got a bit of a gap on. Because what they want to be able to do is provide, this is all weird for us, you know, maybe glasses, maybe a little pin or pendant or something, but some sort of wearable tech that I can take and walk around everywhere. It listens to everything I do, so that when I maybe finish this webinar and it says, I want to ask my own AI, how do I improve? Or I want to ask it for some ideas. It will remember the webinar I did and remember that Becky uses Gemini, and it might remind me to talk about Gemini more often or something. So all of these things happen. Now, you might think that's bonkers, and I suspect it does feel very weird for a lot of people, but actually that is going to be a huge win for us, for many of us, if we can do it in a secure way. Let's see if we get there. It's a weird thing, a bit like social media. No one thought they'd be publishing pictures of their dinner onto the internet for everyone to see, but you know, in time, everyone got comfortable with it. It's a bit similar. It's not quite the same. It's a bit similar in your business. You're saying, what other pieces do we have that we can pull? Interview transcripts is a good example. Job adverts, can we pull that in? Can we show the AI all this stuff? Our previous social media posts, if we wanted to create good social media posts, or maybe it's not even our previous ones. Maybe it's our competitor's social media post. You want to, or maybe not even a competitor, just someone you admire, and you want to copy the style or use it for inspiration. Then all of this builds into a data set. So when you go to ask it a question and say, I'd like you to do this as a task, you can give it that knowledge base of maybe your competitor's social media and say, create me stuff like this, but for our organization, with what you know about our organization. Okay, so there's an example, something you could throw in. Here's 50 interview transcripts, go through them. There's a question there about what interests you about working for us. Group the answer into 3 or 5 distinct groups, outline the motivations of these groups. Yeah, so that will start giving you a bit of an idea of what's going on. Now, here's an example, candidate persona brief. This is me going into ChatGPT saying, I'm looking at this. Can you write me a candidate persona brief? You've got this example here now in your results. You can tweak it and say, I don't want to see this. I'd like to see this, and it sort of starts breaking it down for you. You can reflect on that. You can tweak it. I think the most important thing here with all content coming out of AI, don't just say, oh, that's brilliant. It's possibly miles better than I could do on my own, I suspect, because it's not an area that I'm very strong in this area. But doesn't mean I shouldn't be reading through it going, that's really good, but I'd improve that by changing that there, knowing what I know about this role. Share that with the hiring managers, that know the teams and the profiles and the people that they recruit, they're looking to recruit, and maybe they'll tweak it as well. And then you get this candidate persona brief, which is one nice piece of the puzzle. You can also get these tone and style guides. Yeah. Now, these might be more for the organization as a whole, for your employer brand. Yeah. So it could be, chances are your organization already has brand guidelines. They're fine. They're very useful. Yeah. But I would take those brand guidelines and I would say, can you give me, a tone and style guide for our employer brand content, bearing in mind, I want it aligned to the brand guidelines. I want it to make sure it falls within them. But with anything that you're talking to candidates or job seekers about, it's a little bit less formal than your normal corporate content, I would suggest. That depends on the organization, but that's quite often how it works. Yeah. You see how a law firm will talk to their customers. They'd be demonstrating how professional and serious they are typically a lot of the time and how risk averse they are. And then when they talk to job seekers, they are still those things, professional stuff, but they're a little bit more, let me show you what goes on behind the scenes. And, we're a nice company, we've got good culture. It's a bit softer version of them perhaps, but it varies for each organization. But all of this was generated from ChatGPT just with simple prompts going in and it giving me feedback. Okay. And then you can end up with these persona specific guides. So okay, for apprentices, this is the tone and style we're going to use. For experienced candidates, and for management roles, we're going to use this. Really easy. We're just splitting roles into 3 now here, because I know chances are you guys don't do this when you create content. But so we want to keep it nice and simple, not make it too complicated. We've just got 3 different tone and style guides. Yeah. If you put that into a data set and then you fed instructions into ChatGPT to say, use this, when you put out a management role, it would automatically understand that that's the tone and style and language it should be trying to use. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea. Now, what I wanted to show you next was, I don't know how many, let me know in the chat if any of you have used ChatGPT's deep research feature. It's available now for free. I'm going to show you it, I'm going to say live, but I've already done it this morning because when I've ran this webinar before, it took over an hour to complete its work. So let me just walk you through when this does refresh. I'll just have to refresh it. So what I wanted to do is we've got a customer here that works with us and his Glide. So we've created a career site for them. It's got some good content. As most hireful customers, they're not huge. They're a few hundred staff big. They're a technology company. And we've created this lovely career site for them, or I should say with them, because they're involved in producing the content clearly with us. So there's lots of information here. You can click through and see more information about little case studies, little stuff going on. So it's a really good example. There's a nice video as well. So I've gone onto their LinkedIn page and I've then found, this is people that basically are similar organizations. KCOM, they're a bigger organization than them, and a few others here, Netomia. And now I don't know as a fact that these are all points fiber, that these are direct competitors. But I've got their career sites. Some of these look similar. Some of these are about the same size. KCOM's certainly much bigger. And I've gone across, when this does catch up, I mean, why is it being so slow for? To ChatGPT, and I said to ChatGPT, I need, well, the first thing I said was, I need a prompt. Let me just see if I can pull it up over here, actually, whether it would be better on the desktop. Something like the browser's struggling. Let's see. Here we go. Fine. I'll do it. I'll do it with a desktop. I'll show you on the desktop what I did. So the first thing I did, actually, this is really important, actually. I went to ChatGPT and I said, I'm going to perform a deep research analysis of career sites to understand the EVP offering that they're suggesting. I need to reverse engineer it to look at, to understand the EVP by looking at the content. Who is it appealing to? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Now, I did that, by the way, by voice. If you see that, if you read that, I'll put it on the chat. You'll read how weird that sounds, because it's me just waffling. There's a little bit of waffle in all of us. You can probably understand there's a lot of waffle in me in the way I talk sometimes. I use voice. I just click on voice and I just dump what I want in there. I mention the same thing again, slightly differently. The AI works that through and works it out. So that's called meta prompting, not the voice part. But meta prompting is asking the AI for a prompt. Yeah, and I use that all the time. Really, really good tip if you don't use that already. And then it gave me this quite long prompt. Now, I would normally, but I was working fast today, I'm just doing this as an example, I would normally read through this and go, right, I want 4 to 5, not 2 to 3. I don't want it to focus on this, I want it to focus on that. But it gives me the structure and the outline. I then dropped that into a new chat, which is here when it catches up. Let me go show you this. So I dropped it all in, I said, analyze this, and then it asked me, right, which are the 3 to 10 career sites you want to look at? I gave it the 4 career sites, and then it asked me a couple more questions, and then it got to work. And then it produced this, which I have got saved for you as a Google Doc. So I've got the full analysis here saved for you, which I'll put on the chat as well. It looked at the content signals, the target, who they're appealing to, the EVP confirmation, the candidate personas for Glide. And I could keep asking it questions as well, which is a really nice touch. Differentiation, how they differ from these others. Okay. And then it looked at their competitors for each one of them. So, I mean, it's a really detailed thing. It took about, I don't know, it must have been 20 minutes, I'm guessing. Like I said, I didn't do this live because when I've done it live before, we had to finish the webinar and it was still working. Sometimes they can take longer than an hour. So normally it tells you how long it took. But yeah, it's gone through that and done a really deep dive. So it's just down here at the bottom. If I just take this off, I'll show you. All you do is hit the plus sign and you can see deep research. I'm on a paid account, but even on a free account, you get a limited number of deep research searches. So I'd highly recommend that if you've got something you want it to look at, I would highly recommend trialing deep research. Just give it a go for something. But typically it's a bit of a, can you do a bit of a deep dive, look at my job advert, compare it to these four job adverts, tell me X, Y, Z, compare on these metrics, blah, 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 blah. And away you go. Once again, I would start with asking ChatGPT, say, this is a challenge I've got. Can you write me a prompt for a deep research search that's nice and detailed? I want it to look at all these things, and it will give it to you. You edit that, you drop it in. 30 minutes later, you get your full report. Do not just go and send that to your bosses. Read it, analyze it, work out how it can be improved. Maybe you're asking further questions afterwards as well, like, how does this and how what do you mean by that? And could you also look at this? And it will go through it. So I've got that saved as a Google Doc. Let me just grab this now for you. So you can see that full research there. You have to click on it on the chat and you'll be able to access that. But I wanted to just show you that because I think at this initial stage, when you're looking at your employer brand, a lot of what you should be doing is research, is to understand what are other people doing? How does this map up? How does it sort of level out? Who are these guys targeting? And nothing stops you almost benchmarking this. If you come up with a specific prompt where you've got it to measure and rate things out of 10, or look at this area, give me a full analysis of these people's benefits, whatever you're trying to do, you can say, right, these are 20 competitors. Analyze their benefits as listed on their website or their job adverts. Find a recent job advert. Must be within the last 90 days and do that. You could do that every 6 months. Run that prompt every 6 months. Go right. And you could also give it the report from last time and say, alert me to what's changed. So it is a little bit limitless in this deep research world we live in. And I'm going to talk about deep research and how this reasoning, or its ability to go and do research and really think about things in a long format, take 30 minutes to go through stuff. I'll talk about that at the end as well, about how I think that's going to change in the future. Okay, so did think that was going to go on a little bit, so I get very excited. I do start to worry about. I'm looking at the time while I'm talking. Let's talk about some AI generation tools. This will also be quite live. So there's a few going on here. So Ideogram is a free tool. I'm going to show you that in a second. It's pretty good. If I'm using it, so I quite often use a lot of images. If I'm writing a webinar, I might need 30 images for that webinar for all these slides. You'll see there's lots of images like this one on the slide. So I might want to go and get those images. So I would actually probably pay the $8 a month because I can't afford to wait, because it puts you in the slow lane. I'll show you that. So if you're happy to wait because you only need a few images here and there, then use Ideogram. It's great. You can also use ChatGPT 5 as well. I didn't put it in the list because the latest ChatGPT has had an upgrade in terms of images. I still probably prefer Ideogram, but they're both pretty good. So we'll talk about Ideogram. And then the other one I'm going to show you, which is really cool, is Napkin. Let me know in the chat if anyone's using Napkin AI. Napkin's great at like infographics, visual representations of stuff. So let's just show you. I'm going to actually start with Napkin. So I'll just show you something that I was working on with Napkin here. So I was trying to show like our process of us building a product, an AI product into our ATS essentially. So I was talking about different things, different components of it, and I processed it all there. And then I can just simply grab something like this, generating insights, and I can hit the little button and it will start looking at that and trying to give me ideas for an infographic. So while it's doing that, the actual infographic I ended up with was something like this, just to show to my colleagues, because I was talking about a concept in our management meeting, our leadership meeting, and I was just trying to get something across about how it works and how we position ourselves. And clearly, I think it works better visually than me just talking about NLP processing or hireful knowledge or customer data set. So it does its little jazzy bit here, and it will take any piece of text you give it, and it will give you lots of suggestions, as it's about to do now. And yeah, because this is what I give it in here, generating insights. So it's now looking at, oh, these are the things that was mentioned, yeah? And I can just change the styles, or if I click on one thing, it then offers me a few more different ones. And you can obviously go in and you can actually edit each component if you wish. Oh, that looks a terrible one, to be honest, but yeah, you get the idea. So let me know if any of you are using Napkin, but Napkin is very cool. I'm going to show you Ideogram, but I'm going to move off the character one because I'll get to that later. I'm going to show you that in a bit because that's quite cool. So let's just go home before you hopefully see that. Yeah, okay. So Ideogram, it all comes down to your prompt, your visual prompt. So you'll see a lot of what I'm using here is sort of like clay animation type let me show you some of the other visuals. Yeah, here's a visual. It's like clay animation people. Yeah, I quite like it. It's sort of style. I think our marketing team would be upset actually because it's slightly off brand. We don't use this anywhere else apart from in my webinars, but I like it, so I'm keeping it. So what I can do is I've got this prompt that I borrowed from somewhere, but I want to show you the level of visual prompt you get. Now, you could go, I'll get to this anyway, so I'll come back to that actually. So this is my prompt. I save it in Word, and all I do is change this section in the middle because the rest of it in yellow is the sort of style guide for it. Yeah. And then what I want to actually achieve is here. So this is someone looking at in an office, looking at your AI employer brand. Let's just drop that in. So it's a reasonably long prompt, but let's just drop that into our friend Ideogram and see how they get on. All right, okay, so let me just close off that. I think it's doing that now. I need to get rid of character. Character is interesting, I'll come to that later. I'm just going to hit generate. So when I hit generate, you'll see it will say we're putting you in the slow lane. You might see that. Waiting in the slow queue, skip the wait, because that's the bar, the sort of compromise, because I'm on a free account with Ideogram at the moment. Yeah, Kate, you will get the recording. Don't worry if you're late, if you have to go off, don't worry, that's fine. Everyone will get a recording. So yeah, that's going to do the slow lane. While we do the slow lane, let me see if I can click into my creations. Okay, my images. There's this other piece you've got as well. I'm going to be sharing a bit much here in my world, but where you've got there's lots in the slow lane at the moment in slow queue, but I'll show you. You can actually upload one character now to this. This is a slightly different thing, but interesting. So I uploaded a picture of me, one picture of me, I think, and then from that, we have a WhatsApp holiday group with a few of us in it. My kids, my partner's kids, and it was all a bit fun. So I was just sort of doing like before and after, and it just takes me and puts me in all these settings. I said, this is going to be me in the airport. And then I said, this is me in like 24 hours. I didn't use the one with the shirt off, by the way, but it just goes to show you can, what you can do is quite interesting. But we will leave them in the slow queue. Hopefully they won't take too long to come out of our claymation examples. But I wanted to share that with you. I will share the length of prompt. I'll put that in the chat as well. But I wanted to just share that with you to show how you can build your prompts. But the other way of building a prompt, if you thought about it, might be you could give an image to ChatGPT and you could say, this type of image I want to generate, can you reverse engineer it and provide me a detailed prompt that would allow me to generate a similar visual image? Yeah. And you could use images from your career site already. This is an image I've got. This is an image we like. We want images like this. So you start getting that, and maybe then you end up with your own structure like this. And then or maybe 3 or 4 types of visual prompts, for this style, this style, this style, for the different ones you have. Let me know if that makes sense. But I just wanted to pull the curtain back on that. So a bunch of you said, how many of you said this? So what is it? 9% of you said you were using AI for image generation. So I think we could probably do a bit more with that. It's definitely useful for social posts when you want to create something a bit quirky and funny. That's really cool. If you've built yourself as a character and you're happy to share yourself, then now I'm built as a character, I can drop myself into whatever setting. And those are the types of images, particularly when people know it's a jokey AI post of me in a daft thing, then I think that does also get good engagement. Okay, so we've done that. We've gone back a bit. We've done that as well. So you get the idea of napkin. Then I've got a few examples. I looked at these images and I sort of reverse engineered them. So you sort of get, this is the subject, the description, and the style. So that's the sort of components of a visual image, a visual prompt, sorry. And I've got a few other things to think about. These are the type of things you can incorporate, and you can also exclude and tell it what you don't want to see. If it starts giving you stuff or you've seen some of the past you don't like, then tell it what you don't like. Okay. And then there's like an example of, I've got this post, and this is one of the ones I'm, so you get the idea. And we spoke about napkin. Cool. We've done ideogram and napkin. So there you go, another little claymation post that I'm quite proud of, sort of. The tools to inspire you to do. So let's look at a few more tools then we can think about here. So Eddy AI is a really good tool. Some people said they're using video. So how many people said they're using video? Let's just see. So 6% of you guys said you're using video. So Eddy AI is really good because you can edit the video just using text commands. So if you've created a video, you can drop it in there and it's quite quick to edit. So it's pretty good. And I think you can get, like I said, ChatGPT for video editing. It's pretty good as well for, even on the free plan, you do pretty well on it. And then I also, if your LinkedIn will be probably a prominent area for you guys with social media. So Taplio's something I also recommend. They've got this free tool, and they've got a load of little free tools you can go see, but one of them is a carousel generator, which is quite cool as well. Carousel, as the LinkedIn carousel posts tend to get quite good engagement. Can't always guarantee good engagement, but bits where you're sort of starting with something and people can click through it and see 3 or 4 things. Putting on job posts as carousels can be quite useful as well. So feel free to check that out. And then you've also got various things like the EGC calendar. So, this is just an example of putting all your content and organizing it. So once you start getting into like a consistent process with your employer brand, and consistency is the superpower. It's not the person who does the coolest stuff. That does help, but it's actually boring stuff like being consistent and saying, we're going to post out on this basis. We're going to update our career site every 3 months and make sure and a calendar can help you do that, help you generate that content and keep these things going. So that's a pretty cool ebook that you can do to download it from there. Okay, not too far off the end, so I can't believe I whizzed through this quite so fast, but that's cool. I wanted to touch on future planning. Before I do that, let me show you why I think AI is super important for. I don't know if I've been reading a lot about how Google has changed. Let me just see. Let me put something in here. Find me a company with good work-life balance. I'll say company, I'll say law firm. I'll say tech company. In Milton Keynes. So I live just outside Milton Keynes. Let's see what it finds. So Google is changing imminently. There'll be a piece to change where you can change it instead of being like this. Instead of being normal Google results, it will be you have the option for AI search. I don't know if it's actually here yet. They are rolling it out. I can't quite see it yet on mine. There it is, AI mode. I haven't played with it yet. I was just listening to podcasts about this last week. So you can do that. Now, what they're saying, this might become more default for people, or people might choose to make it their default. And this resembles much closer to ChatGPT now. Yeah. And this is the challenge. This is one of the reasons I think you need an employer brand. The prompts that go into an AI tool, like Google's AI mode, or obviously our friends ChatGPT or Copilot Gemini or Perplexity or Claude, they're much longer, typically 20 to 30 words. The average search term into Google is 4 words. So when those toe in the water candidates, as I see it, are, the ones that are, I'm quite happy where I am at the moment. I'm a high demand candidate. I'm happy, but I'm always open to a new opportunity. They will have not just the search, but in the future, they'll have an agent. So they'll have their own little tool that is looking and monitoring constantly for any new opportunities that pop up, and it will research and vet them. And when they're at the right level, they will bring it back, let's say to me, and go, Adrian, there's this opportunity just popped up. I think you might want to have a look at it. Now, that's a bit of a leap, a bit forward into the future. But even now, Google's seen its first drop off in search, and more people will start searching in the next 6 months, I believe it is, via ChatGPT, and they will simply come along and they will run that same search on ChatGPT. Let me just use voice to save me time. I'm looking to find to work for a tech company in Milton Keynes area that offers good work-life balance. Can you do your research and suggest some? But I want to make sure you're showing me evidence. So show me the evidence of where you're gathering, where you're corroborating this information. There you go. Told you a waffly old audio search. It will transcribe that, and then we'll submit it. That's better than the searches you do, without being rude, better than the prompts you do, because it's longer. Longer normally means better. There's a bit more information there, a bit more context. Now, it will do this. So I think, let's even bring it up a map. This is starting to get similar to, to some of the Google stuff it does. So renewable energy tech company, BP, sort of tech. And you can sort of see where the listings are coming from. So I should have maybe started with this concept today, but I'm only coming to it because I've got a little bit further, got through my content a bit quicker than I thought. But the key point I want to make to you is, as people put in more detailed searches into either Google's AI mode, or more likely, I think, ChatGPT. You saw today, 85% of people on this session, ChatGPT they're using, is head and shoulders above Copilot and all these other tools. So As people do more and more job searches by this, and I can set up a task so it keeps monitoring and keeps checking this one and brings new ones back to me. And it might say, don't bring me ones that I've discounted in the last year. It will do all of that for me. As people do that, where's it going to find the information from to make sure that your organization appears in this search? Yeah, that's the question. At the moment, I think one of the challenges for the smaller companies, if I just did a search on Google, let me go back to my friend Google here, just normal Google, hopefully, and I said anything like hairdresser jobs in Only. Now, I live in a small market town called Only. It's got a few thousand people in it. It's got 4 pubs to give you an idea of how big it is. But look at the who owns the actual listings. Glassdoor, Indeed, Simply Hired, Total Jobs, JobSite, Leisure Jobs. Does the local hairdressers have a chance? This one's based in Milton Keynes. So, and actually, this is hair salon recruitment. This is that's not an individual employer. Individual employers don't really have a chance of listing on Google, but actually they do have a chance of listing if people are putting in more detailed searches, saying, I'm looking for a job like this, but the company must offer hybrid working, they must do this, really want something that would support me on this level, if it's got good training. So more and more and more, there's a real requirement for you guys to have employer brand content out there. Yeah. Three areas I would suggest for that, right? One, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the most cited source for your organization. So you should be speaking to your marketing department, making sure there's a Wikipedia page. And on that Wikipedia page, you can actually put some sort of employer brand content. If that talks about Alicia Bank, then maybe you should talk about the types of people Alicia Bank hire, what their EVP type is and all that. Build it out, put that information in there. Why not as a subsection of your Wikipedia page? It's really important for listing on ChatGPT and other AI search tools like Perplexity and other things like that. The other one is third-party areas like Glassdoor, third-party review sites, Glassdoor, Indeed reviews. They're more important as well. So have a strategy for that. I've got webinars to show you how to do that. And the last one, which is the one that's much more inside your control, your career site, your job adverts, all of the content you put out there. Yeah, your website, your career site, having more pages detailing your approach to hybrid working, your benefits, all of this stuff will help you come back because they will see that you're viable. You meet the criteria. Someone said they wanted training, they wanted this, they wanted support with hybrid working. Guess what? You've told ChatGPT that you do all that. It reads your web page really quickly and then brings it back and suggests you as an offering. You'll see it doesn't suggest loads. It always typically suggests 3, 4. Yeah, it could suggest more if I wanted. I can go, give me another 3, 4 and go from there. But you want to come back in these searches more and more, yeah, because they will be particularly important for people, the toe in the water candidates who are more fastidious. But also, the flip side of that, your employer brand, someone finds your company and then wants to ask it, what do they think about your company? Then this is really important as well. Yeah. So I can also follow up, one last follow up on here before I jump off to the next bit. Can you tell me pros and cons of SunGrow UK? I've never heard of them. I want to know whether the sentiment out there is really positive about them or whether it's a bit negative. Let me know what you can find, but I want to make sure I make the right move. So, give me, a bit of detail on this. Try this for your organization as well. See how you pop up. How does chat? It's quite difficult to tell how many times you're appearing in these searches. There are some tools to give you a bit of an idea, but your marketing department might be able to give you an idea on that. But what you can do is you can do an audit and say, how do I appear? What's the general sentiment? How do you understand my organization as an employer? Yeah. Look at that straight away, Glassdoor. I didn't tell it Glassdoor, straight away Glassdoor comes up and you can see where the ratings are. We've got pros and cons. You've got independent recognition awards are happening here as well. And you've got my opinionated perspective. So it's actually taken, I think, by the way, ChatGPT tends to be a bit more optimistic. I think many of these tools do. So maybe in future it might be a bit more brutal, or you might be able to engage brutal mode. But yeah, look, consider your priorities. SunGrow has tangible benefits. That said, it almost has like 2 sides, but also you've got to factor in this, la-di-da. So recommendation, I would do this. And it's sort of, yeah, it really doesn't make decisions for you. It sort of just gives you, and when it gives you the summary, quite often the summary is like very, very balanced, but within the detail, if I'm a candidate, I think there's lots of value in this. Yeah. It's named 187 of the best medium-sized places to work. Great, right. So it's got that. So it puts that in there and all the rest of these things. Okay, so hopefully that's useful for you guys. Let me just cover off my last few points. I mentioned AI reasoning. I showed you the deep research earlier. Well, there's a tool called DeepSeek, which is a Chinese, essentially a Chinese-backed AI tool to compete with ChatGPT. And you can think of this as instead of like ChatGPT would have used as a team of interns. This now, when you've got this offers reasoning for free, and it obviously therefore means that you can have a team of analysts. Interestingly, ChatGPT 5 has come out. Sam Altman, the founder, has come out this month, announced that it's like having a PhD level student, sort of a PhD, someone who's got a PhD working on your team. They can do, if you prompt it correctly, it can do that level of research and analysis. So that's where they're going. The cost of these deeper reasoning things to go and do those deep research, benchmarks, all of those, that's coming down and down and down. Like I say, the initial deep research search I showed you wasn't available to ChatGPT when you're on a free account. Now it is, but it's limited. Maybe in the future it might even be unlimited. Who knows? But a key part, I'm just stressing on this, I wanted to show you, this is our data set. We've got it on Google Drive. We're starting to collect the relevant documents for our business more broadly, but you could totally build this as an employer brand data set where you start saving and downloading. If you've got testimonials, it might be, you do an employee engagement survey, you get all the feedback from there. Some of them are positive. You sort of put that in there. You've got positive comments from you've got your Glassdoor reviews, you can put that in there, or you can point it towards it. So there's lots of content you can put together that when you then go, I've wrote my job advert, can you add a quote, a testimonial quote from it? It might just go and pull that from one of these sources because it's got all the information. So having the data set ready is really key to producing great content. Yeah, and then the last piece on this is a quote from Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn. Now he's very, very into AI, a bit of an AI evangelist. And I wanted to just leave this with you as a bit of an insight for the future, for your own personal development, but also where things are going more broadly. And he's sort of, you can read the quote there, but what he's sort of talking about, he's saying, in the future, we will hire people. And part of the reason we will hire them is because they have a bunch of agents. So maybe it's like custom GPTs. And we've touched on some of that stuff today, like you saw with deep research and stuff like that. So if you hired me in the future, it might be that I'm saying, well, when you hire me, I will come in the first 10 days, I will use my agents and tools to produce a completely thorough benchmark report comparing you to XYZ. So we then have a path forward that is all done in 10 days. So we know where our employer brand is, where we need it to go, how we line up against others, where the opportunities are, and obviously how we're going to get there. Then the next bit, my agents will produce the content for the website. We'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this. What he's suggesting is, that's where the value of a lot of people will be judged, is because they might call them their agents. I might have that wrong, or it might just be they're hiring those people because they've got the skills that they can build out that plethora of agents behind them to deliver this work. So it's not one person delivering a lot of work. And like I say, many of us in the sort of SME level, our employer brands have not really been good enough. We know that we're too busy with all these other things. But if the AI can look after like the shortlisting of candidates, and that makes it easy for us to do takes away some of the admin, then obviously we can then really leverage some of these other AI tools to maximize our employer brand for the new AI search world we're moving into. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I haven't gone too crazy with it. Sorry. Let's finish with some takeaways, and I'll also shout out if there's any questions. Hopefully, I do think I've gone a bit high level today as well, and I'm hoping I've inspired you, but you'll let me know. Hopefully I've given you a few good tools and tips as well that you can practically use today as well. Not everything's about 6 to 18 months time, but it's good to have that vision of where it's going, I think. Takeaways, yeah, start playing with those tools. You're using ChatGPT, great. Start using some of the extra pieces to it. Start pushing the boundaries a little more. Start using some other tools as well. Sign up for one AI newsletter. I've got one. You're welcome to sign up for mine. I'll put it on the chat in a second. But there's other AI newsletters out there. It's good. AI recruitment newsletters is what I'll be looking at. It's you want to be keeping yourself abreast of what's going on, making sure you're familiar with the terminology and agents and LLMs and all these types of things. You're not becoming a techie. Think about it. At the dawn of computer age, someone who worked in an office didn't know much about computers. If they were able to sort of engage with it and understand it, and they could then talk about the monitor, the printer, the keyboard, the hard drive, they would know about what a word processor was. Then maybe they'd be ahead of their counterparts. So that you wouldn't be a techie. You would just be someone who understands what a computer is. That's the sort of thing we're talking about with AI. We're not looking for you to be a techie. We're just getting you up to speed so you understand the terminology, you understand where it fits together, you understand what's possible, and you understand how to deliver on these things. Yeah, and I think it's important as well, then you can start setting aside time every quarter to improve your employer brand. And I would always start that with some deep research reports. If you've got one that goes out and looks at stuff, I think the benefits example is the one that really resonated from me to go check out, maybe not every 3 months, maybe every 6 months, go check this list of 20 competitors, analyze their benefits, tell me where they've moved, tell me where it's changed, and away you go. You could do a similar thing with salary benchmarks or anything like that. But obviously employer brand, check their career sites. I want to see what they've done. Show me any new pages. And that might inspire you to create a similar page for yourself. And it keeps you abreast of all the opportunities and that you might be able to leverage. Okay, that is the webinar, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you're jumping off, then good luck. And I'm going to just quickly show you, and feel free to rate the webinar because it's a relatively new one. I'd be keen to see that. I've got a few webinars popping up, a few that I wanted to show you in particular. So let me just quickly grab these and put them on the chat. So obviously you guys are interested in AI. You've been on today's session. So there's 2 webinars coming up towards the end or the start of September, getting your recruitment department AI ready and the AI enabled HR department. So they're similar, but they're looking at HR department and one's looking at recruitment. So it's all talking about that data set, the policies, the procedures, all of those things. Clearly you guys are engaging and leaning into this stuff, but it's like, how do you then build that into your departments? So it's probably I think it's one of the most important webinars I do. So feel free to check that out. There's also a great webinar we're doing on the 9th around neurodivergent employees. That's with a neurodivergent expert called Sarah Tansell. So feel free to check that out as well. Right, I'm going to lie down in the dark room. Thank you for your time, guys. I actually do offer up my time for free if anyone wants to talk about AI. That might sound a bit bizarre, but message me if you're interested in booking a time for you, your colleagues to do that. The reason I do it, firstly, because we're hireful, we're the most helpful recruitment technology company out there. But the other reason I do it, there's 2 reasons. One is I offer the time, very few people take me up on it, which is great, because if everyone did, I wouldn't be able to offer my time up. I've got a day job. But the other reason it's important for us is, we're building AI technology. It's really important that I get to speak to departments to understand the conversations that are going on internally. So if you're giving up your time to say, Adrian, these are the challenges, these are the thoughts, these are the problems we have, that's actually benefiting me hearing that. And I'll do my best to sort of offer some suggestions or point you in the right direction. Right, I'll leave you there. I've enjoyed the session, guys. Hopefully you have too. And we will speak soon, and good luck with your AI-powered employer brand. Cheers then. Bye.